Mhm. We were on a Zoom the other day where when the recording in progress came on, everybody was just like, every time that comes on, we just want to leave and just run away.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Joanne Butcher. I am a business coach, film fundraising consultant. I talk about everything to do with the business of film. And as I like to say, I talk about everything that filmmakers don't want to know about, which is the money side of things and the business side of things. But I've realized that when filmmakers actually get to know some of those things about business, they do much better and they do really well. So we do this series every other week. It's called The Filmmaker's Life, and we interview filmmakers who have already had success in their careers, and then we get to find out how you did it. So welcome today to Jian Hennings and Sophie Walcott from Trinidad and Tobago. And as some of you know, I'm half Trinidadian. Emily is also Trinidadian by proxy, lives in Trinidad. So we're running the show today.
Married to a Trini.
Married to a Trini daughter. So yeah, welcome everybody. I like to start with a question, and now I have two people, so it's going to be very, very difficult, very hard work for me today. So my first question I always like to ask is, when did you first know that you were a filmmaker?
You can go first.
When I knew I was a filmmaker, when I knew I liked filmmaking. When I first felt like I wanted to get into filmmaking was actually in secondary school, when a friend of mine, she used to edit just kind of because she was just very techie, and she introduced me to it. And when I was doing it one day, I started like shaking, and I was like, why am I shaking? Like, I don't understand. And I realized I was really hungry because it was like 9-10 hours later.
Wow.
I like this. I like this enough not to eat for 10 hours. And
right.
That was the first time I knew that I could, that this might be what I want to do.
That's a great story. I love it. Jian, what about you?
Well, the funny thing is, most people say they were like 15, 16. I was like 28. Like when I was like, yeah, I think I want to try and make a film, because I was in the bank for many, many years, and the idea of making a film just seemed impossible. So I thought I'll be a film critic maybe, or something like that. And then I started to write, and I realized, okay, I could write a script for like free. And then I was like, okay, cool. Like, what can I do for free to kind of make a film? And I made a little short, and I realized it's doable. So like literally a week later, I quit my job with like no plan, and went into the world of filmmaking. And yeah, I've been here since, so it was good.
Really? So you had a real job, and you
Yeah,
quit the job?
yeah, with benefits and everything.
What made you think that you could survive in filmmaking?
Survive. That's a rough one. I mean, I knew I could live for a couple of years because I'm very frugal. So I had a good bit of savings, and
right. Okay.
So I said I'll give it 3 years and see. And if push comes to shove, I could always get another bank job. It's impossible. So plus I was older. So I took it really seriously. Like, starting at that age, you don't screw around. You're like, okay, I'm here to do something. And I think that helped me get by like a lot faster than people who start when they're like 15 and then trying to figure it out.
Right. And I think also maybe starting out that way and knowing that you have to make a living at it might have you think in a way that perhaps is different to most filmmakers.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you had to pay the bills. So yeah, I I love to ask this question. I didn't know till I was much older, but when I was a very young child, I had dreams which began with opening titles and ended with the end.
Yeah.
So, so it started very young, but I didn't believe I could do it till much later.
Yeah, of course.
That's fantastic. So when did you two meet and work on your first project together?
I mean, take it.
Okay.
We met in film school. So like I said, I left work at like 27, 28, and I went to local film school to UE, which is free at the time. So like again, money.
Yes.
And we actually were in class
Oh,
together.
let me just say for the non-Trinis here, UE
Yeah.
is the University of the West Indies. They have a great film school, which was started by Bruce Paddington.
Yeah, many years
Yeah.
ago.
Yes.
Yeah, so we were in the same class, but we didn't really work together until our capstone, which was the last film,
That's
which
perfect.
she edited, which somehow turned into a feature film. So you get really close to somebody when you make a feature film.
That's an incredibly rare thing. I think you're the first people I've ever met who said that they started a film in film school and it ended up being a feature film. I
It
don't
was a
think I've
surprise for us too, to be honest. Like she came out to me and was like, "Oh, I think it's a feature." I'm like, "Oh, really? All right."
What did it start out as?
It started as a 20-minute short, and I think the script just ballooned into like 40 something pages. But how I used to shoot, well, kind of shoot now is I'm very much about the frame and getting story across, you know, in the frame and not just in the dialogue. So yeah, somehow that 40 something page script turned into like a 92-minute movie. Yeah.
Just very.
What was that movie?
Back to Freeport.
Back to Freeport in the Bahamas?
No, it's
We have a place around Central that's called Freeport.
yeah.
So it's about the character kind of returning to his home, which is in Freeport.
Again, it was a very frugal film. It's like we have access to old house. We have 2 actors. Let's film here for way too long, and we go feature. Yeah.
So what's special about Freeport in Trinidad?
I can talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from South, so I think what's different about me is most people in film are from the North. So I tend to write about like places and people. So Freeport's important because whenever I was on the road in like heavy traffic going to school, I'll be stuck there for 2 hours just looking at the environment. And there's no better way to get an idea for film to be stuck in a car for 2 hours going to school and be like, oh, that's a really cool house, that's a really cool tree. You know, I'm gonna make a film here. So that's
So when you were in film school, and so again, I'm just translating for the Americans. So the south of the country, so you were driving to the north of the country.
I would drive every day, to the north.
Right, 2 hours each way.
2 hours each way, yeah.
I know that drive because my father has a farm in Miaro.
Yeah.
The drive from Port of Spain to Miaro is about 2 hours.
Brutal, but long, yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. You know, you're driving along, you're like, what's happening in that house? So why? I'm always doing that when I'm driving. Why are those people living up there? What are they? Why are they so far away?
Yeah. Of course.
Yes. So, so how did you get the house that you used for your film?
The guy who co-wrote the film with me, his family had the house. It was kind of like it wasn't livable. So it was good for film, but not living, you know. And basically we took a couple of weeks and tried to like make the house like, you know, shootable. It was a real grimy shoot. It was good.
There's tons of video of them like cleaning up the house.
making it look as if it were livable for the film.
Yes,
yeah. So I mean, that's the idea. I mean, that's everybody's first couple of films. It's like just seeing what you have access to, especially in film school. And then that was how I did it back in the day. Like before I could have afford to just write and dream, I used to write for the film. So I was like, okay, I have access to this. Let's make a film about that. That's good and bad, you know, like in terms of making.
No, that's good.
like there you go.
That's good. I have a client, he's not here today, but I'm speaking to him later, and he is making his 4th film with me. And today we're going to talk about his 5th film. And
nice.
yeah, and so the first, and he's a writer. He'd never been on set before he started working with me. And so he said, I want to make a film for 100,000 US, and all my scripts are like big action thrillers, multi-million dollars. So I said, okay, so write a script for that $100,000 film. So he writes the script, and in the opening scene, there was a murder, dead body who was a soldier. There were military police, ambulances, people in ambulance, your faces, police cars, and people in police uniforms. And I said, you spent your $100,000 on your first scene.
Yeah, for sure.
As you said, yeah.
So I think that the idea of writing to what you have, which the budget was probably very, very little, and you could get a house.
Yeah.
It was very little, yeah. Almost nothing,
Yeah.
Almost nothing, yeah. And you probably had time to do it.
Yeah, like we had time. Like time, time is an asset, right? Like especially when you're younger and you're doing it for school. So we shot in that place for like way too long. Like
2 months.
Well,
oh my God.
Well, I mean, in total it was like 30 days, but like most of it were half days because of school. But still, like 30 days, you hear, oh, 30 days.
Yeah,
Like,
we literally had to be like, wake up early in the morning, do the shoot as long as we could, and then all pack up, go to class. I feel really sad for our lecturers at that point, because we were like arriving sweaty,
yeah, we were,
and just tired.
yeah, we were dead.
Yeah.
That was.
And then, so Sophie, is your main role in the filmmaking, the editing piece?
It was for a long time, but especially in the Caribbean, if you want to survive, you have to do a lot yourself. So for a while it was the editing, but because we had to do in media so many of the productions ourselves, I started like slotting in the kind of production manager role, and then eventually graduating to kind of producer, which is kind of more what I took up this year, like end of last year and this year more so. Yeah, I started ADing on commercials mainly, not really narratives, which I prefer.
Yes. Everybody does.
Being on a narrative will be a very interesting experience.
But back then, for this film, were you the editor?
Yes, I was the editor.
Yes.
I
So
didn't start off as the editor though. I like clawed my way up in a weird way. I like started off as just production design.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then when I was kind of bored by myself, I started just doing like other roles, and then graduated to editor by the end.
Yep. But so the reason I'm asking that is because I just wonder how you managed with this 30-day shoot worth of material to be able to start working on that as an editor. How do you deal with all of that footage? As Jian has now said twice, shooting for too long.
Yeah.
Eat a lot of your time, just no sleep and just time. Like, I think relabeling the footage, because I didn't come on as editor until after the shoot. So I had to then relabel, sync all the footage and do all that. And that took about a month of me just waking up every day labeling the footage, because like we didn't really have the tech back then where kind of you can label the stuff in the in the cameras and thing at the point. So that was me for a month, just labeling footage.
Yeah, well, that's our bad too, because as a first time feature director, we like didn't slate half the stuff properly.
Right.
So she had like mental torture for like a month just trying to figure out what shot went where, and but it worked out.
I do think a test on your like mental strength is being an editor.
I think a first feature film is entirely a test of your mental strength.
Yeah.
It's, and I always say to my clients, don't bother talking to anyone until you've made your first feature film. And it's just because in the industry, unless you've been through that fire, then you really haven't been initiated.
Yeah, I got that.
You haven't been initiated, and therefore nobody wants to talk to you. But once you've been initiated and show that you can go through that, you have the mental strength to keep going with all of that, then you're in. That's my theory. So what did you do with that film once it was finished? Were you using it as a film to graduate, or did you just, so you had to?
Well, we showed it in school, which you do, and basically we were right. So every film is like a learning experience, right? So we were completely uninformed about film in the wider scape, right? So like we basically sent it to random film festivals just blindly, just all the stuff you aren't supposed like to do, just random film festivals, and send it wherever. And weirdly, we actually got interest in it for basic distribution from some places.
Yeah, from some kind of Caribbean-based platforms, which was really nice.
We got lucky because the one we went with ended up being good to us.
Yeah.
And for such a small film, I mean, I still see money from it every couple of months.
Really? That's so exciting. And that was a Caribbean distributor, you said?
It's Afro distributor interested in African, Caribbean, and Black American films, because it's very Caribbean, the film, which is our benefit.
Could you tell us the distributor? I think that's very interesting.
Quali.
Kweli.
Quali. Okay.
Yeah,
that's very interesting. Yeah, anytime anybody says good words about a distributor, I want to know who they are.
Yeah. So if you have a really small project, I think they're good because their platform is culturally specific.
Yeah.
So I think that's why.
Even with the second project, what I found too is you do have to look at people who are interested in watching your content as well. And what I kind of found even with the second feature was that even if you get on a better platform, if the people on that platform aren't interested in diversifying their viewing habits, it's not going to be better for you. So I thought Quali was a really good platform for the project for that, because people look for it and they actually watch it.
For the scale of the project.
Yeah.
For the scale, yeah. If it was a project that was a big budgeted film, it probably, you need to like change the strategy up on that one.
Well, a lot of things would have been done beforehand anyway.
Yeah.
Not just
Sure. So you graduated from film school, and what did you go do for your next project?
Well, we the DP of our student film, we were lucky in the sense that she got an opportunity to shoot corporate stuff, and she brought us along. So we were in that world for like 2 years, right? Kind of shooting and more like making a living. But the thing is, I guess what our benefit is, I like to write. So like I'm always writing scripts. And so we had some scripts available. So the government put out a call that they wanted to fund 3 feature films, a very low budget feature films. And luckily I had a script that I felt could have worked with it. So we got a producer who I knew to do the submission, and we got lucky and we came through, and that turned into Grace and Saleem.
And I was one of the judges on that.
Oh, really? There you go. An inside job.
Inside job, yes. And so this is so funny, because as I was preparing for this today, I was like, and I still have never seen any of the films that we picked. But then I found Grace and Saleem was on Amazon, and I was like, but that's my little resentment, that I was one of the judges. There were, I don't think there were that many. There were not that many film people. I think I might have been the film people, because then they had somebody from the government, and they had somebody else who was very kind of accounting kind of thing. And if I remember correctly, we had to come up with 3, and we had to have consensus on the 3.
Yes.
So, but Grace and Saleem was so good, and so I've just watched it in the last week, and it was excellent.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I do
Thank you.
appreciate.
And now I didn't think to look at the credits before today, so I just want to say this. So there's a moment when Grace and Saleem, Saleem is waiting for Grace in a fancy restaurant, and there are people there, and the waiter's talking to him, and you know, and then Grace comes in, and there's this moment where we're like, oh, she's so beautiful, and I suddenly had this moment where I went, oh my God, the sound is so good.
Oh my God.
Who did your sound on the film?
It was mix. So we
Wait,
had
sound like who did on-set sound or who did it post?
I would think it was sound design.
sound design was kind of us.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
We had no more money.
Excellent.
Learn to do
Well,
it.
Mikhail did
Excellent.
the score.
Mikhail did do the
What's
score,
that?
which Mikhail Gibbons, which he's excellent. I'll
Yeah.
work with him any day.
Yeah, that was the first time I worked with a composer, and I can't go back.
Ah,
It supports the film so much.
oh,
Like,
so much.
yeah. Yeah, so we did the sound design, which we'll never do again. And Mikhail did it, and yeah, and we had a mix of sound mixers because, like, again, it was a very low budget film, so whatever who was available when. So
Right.
Cedric came
Cedric did pods.
a couple of days, and he was great. And then
Nicholas
we had
did
Nicholas
the
did
extra.
yeah for a chunk of it. So it's a very puzzle piece film.
It's not something that I would normally have that experience of like, oh my God, the sound is so good. It's just that I just watched 2 of my clients' films in like an assembly cut phase, so no sound, you know, at all. And so maybe that, but I don't know that it was that. It was just that there was something about the way when she walked in, and the camera and the storytelling all gave us this kind of wow. And it happened in the sound as well. And that was what I appreciated so much. You know, yeah, it was really nice. It was really, really nice.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
People who didn't know the sound design very well, I am glad to hear that.
No, it was, and what was it that drew you to that story?
Well, all right, so there's the practical aspect and the creative aspect. The practical aspect.
Actually, tell everybody what the log line of
so basically it's a love story between a Muslim guy and a free-spirited girl, told over 3 chapters in their love story. Basically, we jump forward in time 3 times. And
free-spirited is an interesting adjective.
yeah, I mean, I like the character. Some people find her difficult. So,
he always liked the character. He actually thought Saleem was a lot more difficult than Grace was. But so he thought it was very interesting when Grace always when people always brought up how difficult Grace was, because he was like, nobody notices that Saleem's just as difficult.
Yeah, I don't think she was difficult. I don't think she was difficult. I just think free-spirited is a very kind word, given the word that Saleem uses for her in their relationship. And it you know, when we first see her, we see somebody who is, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if degraded is too strong a word, but she is she's somebody who doesn't think highly of herself.
Yeah, she's kind of like getting to, like, you know, when you look around and you're the last person at the party, that's kind of her, that's her vibe. And she's getting a little too old to be the last person at the party. So
yes, she's the last person at the party. It's daylight.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was a lot of like myself in both characters in good and bad ways, I think. Which I only honestly, when I write, people tell me, that I am in these films. I don't see myself at all in these films. And people were like, this is clearly your.
Yeah, we have a good joke about that all the time with the actors and us, because the actors know him pretty well now, and we're like, it's you. It's-
Explain to everybody what it is about the Muslim versus in Trinidad and what that's about, because I think that is I mean, speaking from somebody living in America, somebody living in Florida, you know, we're in a time in American life where the clash of cultures is people are dying, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that was really important to me because at the time, this was like when it was written, like at least 5 years ago, whenever I watched films that represented like Muslim people or any minority, they were seen as either a terrorist, a bad guy, or oh, here's the one good, like, you know, brown skin guy. Like, you know, it was pretty rough. And growing up in my country, we're very fortunate when we have Muslim people, Hindu people, Chinese, we're white people. So it's kind of like, and we seem to live well together. And when I was younger, I was with my friends, and I have a lot of Muslim friends. And in media, a Muslim person is always talking about, I'm Muslim, that is my identity. And I find the average person is an important part of themselves, but it's not like the whole of who they are. So that was my idea with the film. I want to make a film about a Muslim guy that I've seen, that I've talked to, with somebody who's the polar opposite in a strange way, and how will that relationship form? So the idea was to almost like point out the Muslimness of it without making that everything about it. And hopefully we were successful. I think we were. I was very nervous because, you know, it's important to represent people well, and
Right.
you know, I had friends I wanted to do well by, and yeah, that was the most stressful part of the film for me. Like,
that as well, that we're that are our friends from school as well,
what was them?
that were helping guide him as well with how to treat certain things correctly and
Yeah.
so-
Yeah, representation. The representation is so important, and especially if you're deciding to take on the representation of another race,
Yeah.
religion,
Yeah.
ethnicity, other than
100%.
your own. How did you deal with that? Did you have people help you with the writing?
The writing, we did the first pass on our own, but then I sent it to my friends who are Muslim, and they were like, yeah, it's like fine. Like, you know, we know you, like, you understand how it's fine. The key grip on the set, he's one of our good friends from film school, and his parents are more devout Muslim. So he was more our like go-to, is this well, can this work? And he was good with it too. So like, I was still nervous about it, to be honest, because I got a lot of like, you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, well, yeah, if you're making art, you should, you know, be a little brave, you know what I mean? So I was willing to take the risk and see if it worked or it didn't. Yeah.
And then what did you do with this film? Did you have a different distribution strategy than with the first one?
We did. Like again, like it's kind of funny. Every film you learn what not to do and what to do. So we went in with more of a plan for the film festivals, but again, the film festival scene is a very tricky thing. So we played in a lot of good film festivals, got a lot of awards and stuff. But in terms of distribution, we still didn't know exactly what to do. So for like half a year, I became obsessed, like looking at independent distributors, like listening to interviews. And yeah, we sent it out, and like again, we got interest from the distributor. And that's how it ended up on bigger platforms like Amazon and Altivod. I think it is Altivod, and yeah. So each film we try to go a little bit bigger in terms of scale, budget, but also how we handle it. Our next film, we want to handle it like a proper co-production, like
yeah.
So
I
yeah.
mean, let me just stick with Grace and Saleem for a little bit, because I just want to ask a couple of questions.
Oh,
So
100%.
one of the goals of that funding award was that the film was a micro budget film, and it would be finished by the next film festival.
Yeah,
Did you
like
make that goal? Did you make that goal?
Mostly we did some stuff after as well.
Yeah.
So
But
you had something that you showed
yes,
that
Yeah,
maybe
no,
wasn't
we
quite.
like I think
it was nice to show it. Actually.
yeah, it was the first time we had a film show on that in front of that size of an audience. So we ended up winning the Carifest Festival with the film, which was pretty nice. Yeah, so I think because we were doing such no budget stuff before, even though we had a little bit of money, we were still handling the production like, all right, we can't. This is how much we have to spend. These are the days. So like we were hyper prepared, like in terms of how we shot it.
That's actually I should say that's when I started doing producing. So the producer we also brought on, Leslie, she also helped us a lot in just kind of mentoring us and kind of showing us how to get like maybe a slightly bigger budget thing kind of rolling. So that was like it was good to kind of have that person there kind of showing us a bit of the ropes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. And so one of the things I'm interested in now that the film is on Amazon, which is obviously predominantly an American platform, when I'm in Trinidad, I can only see a very small number of films on Amazon. So is Grace and Saleem available in Trinidad on Amazon?
No, that's the issue with the distribution process in terms of how to say it, like in terms of it's available in the US, but like I said, at the time we didn't know enough to like in terms of the lingo to know, okay, but like will it get like European, will it get Caribbean, will it get this, will it get that? So we're in the process of getting the film back right now to kind of figure out what to do with it in terms of, because filmmaking is funny because you need to eventually move on, but you need to make sure your film's in a good place. So right now we're in the balancing aspect of, okay, we're developing other stuff, but we need to get this film back in our hands and put it in a good home for the next
I'm
couple of years.
I'm assuming this time you went with an American distribution company.
This time we did, yes. No. We're gonna weigh our options before in terms of what's the best option, self-distribution, a smaller, an aggregator, I don't know.
This year going to the different markets, we learned a lot, and we learned a lot more of what are our options and how to go about with those options as well. So it's a different perspective, and we'll definitely move forward with that knowledge.
Well, good job for getting the rights back and going with the direction you want. What I have learned is that there's no such thing as an American distributor who could possibly understand the Caribbean. It just doesn't exist. Because the Caribbean is part of the territory called US, most American distributors are not actually aware that the Caribbean is part of the US. So when they take US rights, they don't know they're getting Caribbean rights. They just don't even know. They're not aware of that. So the first time I was involved in a Caribbean film, we asked to hold the Caribbean rights for ourselves, and the distributor literally didn't know that the Caribbean was part of the US.
Oh.
And that's the case across the board. Oh, I have a friend who works in, specializes in distribution in Africa. And he got into that business because he came across a film he really liked, and he decided he was going to try and sell it. So he contacted the company, a Canadian distribution company. He said, I'd like to distribute this film in Uganda. And they said, oh, okay, then you mean Africa? And he said, oh, no. He said, oh, no. I just mean Uganda. And they said, oh, you mean Africa? He said, I don't have enough money for Africa. And they said, we're giving you Africa. And then he realized, keep my mouth shut. So he got to distribute the film in 38 English-speaking countries instead of one.
Wow.
But Canadian distributors might be a little more in, attuned, but Americans, forget it. They have absolutely no idea. So Africa is one country in terms of film distribution, Africa is a country and the Caribbean actually doesn't exist
Oh, okay.
because it's part of the US and they don't know they have it. And if they did know they have it, they wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So, but given that the film is on Amazon, are you getting any information from your reports that your quarterly or your reports that show? Do you know anything about who's watching? Because I think the thing that I'm interested in is, are people who are not Trinidadian watching the film? And is there any way you could know that?
I mean, in terms of statistics, we aren't. But in terms of the payback scheme, I guess as a general idea of, if you do the maths, you basically have an idea of how many full streams it's gonna get. On Amazon, it's not a lot, if we're being straight. Like,
well, that's what I said about like when you put it on certain platforms and what you expect. So I do think even Amazon, like just kind of throwing it there, I don't think that really does anything. And even the interest for it doesn't do anything. So when we do eventually kind of receive everything back and it probably gets taken down from the platforms, we'll be a bit more mindful with where we put it, because we also want people who are interested in watching this,
right,
especially with the scale of the movie as well. Like it's not a big blockbuster that has like notable faces and the stuff. So the platform, it needs to be something where the viewers are a bit more adventurous in their taste. So and I haven't found that quite yet, I guess, with more Americanized platforms. So yeah, we're all discussing the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think that there are some. I'm actually teaching a workshop next month called, what is it called, Emily? Something, the rise.
Well, it's Film Distribution 2023, The Rise of AVOD.
The rise of AVOD. Yeah, so advertising supported video on demand, which is making a big difference in underrepresented filmmakers' lives, or filmmakers who speak to underrepresented audiences. So I'd be very curious to hear how Grace and Saleem does on those platforms.
Yeah, because I'm actually curious in those platforms too, because when I watch stuff, I tend to watch it on those AVODs.
Oh yeah?
But yeah, because the larger ones don't tend to have a lot of African films, Korean films, like Latin American films. So yeah, I watch the commercials and I watch the movie.
Yeah. So I can handle the commercials.
Yeah.
So what's your next project going to be?
Well, like I said, we were on a lot of different experiences.
Oh yes, tell everybody about the labs, because this is very exciting. You were telling me, I mean, it sounds as though you've practically done a worldwide tour of labs.
Yeah, we have. The funny thing is, like I was saying, like nobody ever hears about the nose, but we happen to get like 3 or 4 yeses very close. Like, so we got like hundreds of no's over the years, and then all of a sudden we got 3 like yeses. So in January
it makes sense to me though, because it's how you're building your career, and so it makes sense that you get into one, you get into another one, you get into another one. It's like you're now on that path. But yeah, tell us about them. That's very exciting. Tell us about those.
Well, the funny thing is each one kind of led into the other one in terms of our knowledge and film and stuff. So we got through with one in the Dominican Republic as part of the dental program, which we were there for a week or 2 learning about co-productions on the international scale. And that was super helpful because we would have never known about that world unless we were there. And then in February, we 2 different programs got through as part of the European film market in Berlin. And that was a mix of training and practical. So we were actually pitching our project, having meetings, and also, well, Sophie was more doing the training program.
So I was in the toolbox program at the European film markets. And then, so we just
what does the toolbox program teach?
It's basically for emerging producers with projects so we submitted, I got through with UNESCO, because they had to choose a section of people, a section in the Caribbean. And then they basically have different talks and train you about the things on the international market that you should be aware of, how you should handle yourself, where your project is, what you need to improve on your project. And then set up meetings basically to talk, depending on what you're looking for. If you're looking for financing, co-production, distribution, because your project could be at any stage. And setting up meetings with people who might have an interest in the project that you're working on.
Yeah, and the EFM was quite good because it showed us on a practical level everything we don't know. So from the first meeting, we got several questions. We were like, oh, I have no idea what that is, but I'm going to keep a straight face. And then as we went on, we realized, oh, every meeting they have similar stuff, you know? So it really prepped us for the real world of independent film financing. Yeah, so that was quite good. And then
Plus, we're very interested in like we said, like every project we want to do more.
Yeah.
So with the projects that we have coming up, a big interest for us is how do we work on the international market, and how do we work with international either co-productions or financiers to kind of work with each other to kind of bring a project to life. So kind of get out a bit of, I guess, the scripts where we try to keep it intentionally small. They're still small, but like growing a little bit and a little bit, and what the interest is in our films, our kind of films, and how it is that we work with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, she's talking a lot more like a producer in the past. Like, I was lucky enough. Sorry,
I think that one of the things that I find really fascinating is how Trinidadian producers are going to think about making the shift to the international stage, because it's so easy for English speakers to listen to Trinidadians and say, oh, I can't understand that accent, you know, that kind of thing. Again, Americans particularly, but I have lovely American people on this. But so how do you think, what do you think you're going to have to do to grow into being an international filmmaker?
You have to find the right people to work with, because yes, you're going to get a lot of which is something we have to learn, is to stay, and something they drilled into me in the Toolbox program too, is it's okay to say no to certain things that you can perceive as opportunities, because who you work with is important. Because ultimately you're going to be working with them for a long time, and it's fine, like you two could come into conflict and have like different points of view about how to like push it forward and stuff, but you need to be on the same page at least, and you need to want the same thing for the project. So you know that when they disagree with something, that they're coming from a good place, or they're coming from a place that you understand. So and there's interest. Yes, you do get a lot of the how do you make it more Western, or how do you make it that could relate to us more? And when you come into contact with that, it's up to you as a filmmaker to know what you want. If you actually don't mind that, that's great for you, and that's the direction you can go in, and you will have a lot of opportunities with that. However, if that's not the opportunity or the type of films that you want to make, you do have to say goodbye to a lot of like certain opportunities. But there are people out there that do have an interest, and you kind of basically have to find them. Like we have so much diaspora as well, and they're growing in the world, and there's so many different people. Like it's not just America. So it's just to kind of find the right group, and also we have to learn as well about how to, because it's a relationship at the end of the day, so you don't want to just take from them either. You want to know what you're providing for them and what they're providing for you, and make it more of a relationship rather than a I take from you and you take from me kind of thing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, everything in filmmaking is about relationships. Yeah, but I do think I'm really interested in watching you move forward with this, because I know that there's a great longing in Trinidad for having films be on the international stage. And so it seems to me that you're ready for that.
Open. So we have
Yeah.
we did a different tactic this time. So before we had like very specific projects we were working on, but now we kind of understand that, oh, also this is taste, like one person could want to work on their core project for like years, but we kind of realized the direction we're going in. So we're developing 3 projects right now, which is a smaller, lower budget scale one that's on a slightly higher budget, and one that's a TV series.
Yeah.
And basically, so we have these in development right now. Unfortunately, if any of you could tell me about development funding, I would love to hear that. But in the meantime, we do it on the side of our job,
Yes.
jobs. But we have those in development, and then we have some people that we're talking to as well, to see basically which project takes off first.
Yes.
And then we'll move forward.
Yeah, I think the name of the game is actually to just work on as many things as possible, the best you can, but don't put all your cards in one project, because I mean, it's good if you can do that. But like I said, I started late in my life and I actually want to get some stuff done. So pushing this one thing, develop it the best you can, have it there, but also have other stuff on the stove.
Yeah.
And then you never know which one's gonna go.
It's true, because we're ready. We obsessed about the stories long enough. We fantasized about them. We're just so ready to like make them happen now. That's definitely.
I just wanted to say something about development funding. Couple of stories. One is a dear friend of mine. I wonder if you would know Jamin O'Brien. He used to be in Miami. Anyway, he's a producer. And several years ago, we were talking about the question of development money, and he said he realized that it was taking, you know, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 to develop a feature. He's working in the like $5 to $8 million budget level, and so much to my surprise, he did a crowdfunding campaign, and he raised $75,000 that he used to develop 2 feature films. He's never done it again, but it was just perhaps in a particular moment when the family maybe was a bit hungry or something. But he was just like, I would just remember the moment we were talking, and he was like, you know, that is all of that money is coming out of my pocket. And the truth is that, you know, he had been hiring so many people for so many years. He was a first AD for years and years and years. $75,000 in a 30-day crowdfunding campaign. So that's one story. And then the other story I have is my most advanced client, Thomas Allen Harris, who is a documentary filmmaker, and he's maybe on his 8th film, 9th film, something like that, is making a film right now. And in the past year, we raised about $400,000 in development money from a variety of places. And this particular project, there was just something about it that we started to see that it was hot, you know, and that people were going for it. So, you know, Sundance money, this money, that money. And then with that money, we were able to hire experts. And now we just submitted a grant for $3.5 million, which I'm pretty sure we're going to get. So to me, what that's about is about in your place in your career. He's probably 20 years in his circle. He's famous. He's, you know, it's at that point, and it's never happened to him before where he got that development money. But for me, looking at it from a fundraising perspective, I think that where you're at in your career, I would actually go to individuals for that money. You know, set a budget for yourself and then aim to raise that as your development funding for the projects, and do it that way. Does anybody have a question for Jian or Sophie or both? My question is, what do you think are what do you think is good about your working relationship? What is it that you each bring to the table?
We can start on that.
Yeah.
I mean, the good thing about us is we really naturally specialize in different aspects of the production. I honestly think if I didn't have a partner who was so dedicated to her side of things, I don't know if I could actually survive in this field, because it's a lot for one person to, you know, like luckily we're like life partners too. So I'm a filmmaking partner. So we always are together, always talking about film. Kind of unhealthy, but yeah, so I mean, I can't recommend everybody marry a producer, but it helps. It helps a lot. Yeah, she kind of allowed me to just be the writer, director. I freelance as a camera up, as a gaffer at times. So she allows me to be the creative, and she handles the producing, the ADing, the more, which side of the brain is that, the right side of the brain? I don't know. Yeah, but so it's easier for us in the sense that we're able to help each other out. That's the only experience I've ever known. So I can't speak for other people, but I'm really grateful to have like a producer living with me,
Yeah.
because it helps a lot.
I love this. So when I'm next teaching a class about attaching a producer, you're suggesting marriage.
Marriage, get them in
Hey,
legally.
why not? I actually have a phrase that I got from somebody else, where when you attach a producer to your project who has already is further down the road than you are, and we call it marrying up.
Oh, nice.
We call that marrying up, but Jian married up in film school, so
Yeah.
very smart, very smart. Does anybody have a question? I just want to make sure. Maeve, go ahead.
Hi. First, thanks for coming today. It's nice to meet you and to hear everything you have to share. I was wondering, silly question, but nevertheless, if you didn't have to worry about budget, what would your dream project be?
You want me to go first? Yeah. The funny thing with me is we always talk about this, like I dream kind of realistically. So even if we didn't have to worry about a budget, I'll probably make like like a 500,000 like US kind of like a dark comedy, you know, like I'm working on one now that's about like you know, a priest struggling with his spirituality. And it's like a comedy. So like my dreams don't tend to be high concept at all, which is bad for us in terms of finding interest, because I think the films are good, but they aren't like cool, you know, like we don't have like a cool log line a lot of the times. So yeah, so like when people say what's your dream film, I'm like, oh, my dream film is very realistic. Like I dream small scale. What is your...
Yeah, honestly, I just really want to be doing this. Like, I don't know if I have like one particular dream project, but I've always loved stories and telling them and watching them and listening to them. And I guess, I know that's like a cheat answer. It's like not very good, but I just want to make movies like, and it's a different kind of like, it's a different kind of feeling when you see something in the script form and then all of a sudden you see it on the screen and you helped create that and you knew that from before and what changed and what didn't, and I just really love that part. So if I could just continue making films for as long as I have this feeling for, I would.
And that's not a cheating answer, Sophie. It says a lot about you. So thank you. Thank you both.
I love the concept of dreaming realistically. I think that's really good. You know, I see filmmakers get really stuck with not being able to dream realistically. You know, it's a very, very, very easy place to get stuck. So I love that idea. Thank you, Maeve, for asking a question. Does anybody else have a question? Okay, I have one more question, which was if you could, I'm not sure if you can, but can you share with us what the next projects are about or anything like that? Maybe you can.
Let me give you a little
Yeah.
brief. Well, I mean, the thing we went to last month was Series Mania, which is like this huge television funding thing. So we're developing a film that got accepted and developed in that project. It's a comedy series. And it's basically about this girl who comes from a very rural village in my country, in South of it.
In South?
And she comes back home to her family's corner shop and brings her white Canadian boyfriend to meet the family. And it's basically that kind of, like I said, I dream very realistically. So like that kind of more family interaction comedy series. And we have two projects. The one I'm rewriting right now is a bigger dark comedy about a priest kind of getting stuck in a place he doesn't want to be in and accidentally starts a cult. And Sophie, well, I always feel bad. She's a writer, director too, and she's quite good. It's just that because she's so responsible, she gets stuck as the producer a lot of times. But we're developing a smaller project with her. You could,
Yeah, it's just labor pains. It's just a small kind of character-based story about this girl who's about to go into labor. And as she's like now starting to feel the first signs, she realizes that she doesn't want kids and never wanted kids, and felt like she got stuck in this decision. And it's basically kind of like her emotional journey from the beginning and the end of the film when she eventually has to have the kid because it's coming my way sit or not.
yeah.
So it's just,
That's great. I suspect that's hot.
I hope we'll
I
see.
think so. I think so. Given, what's happening in America, and I think I've never had children, but my doctor was an OBGYN, and even she didn't tell me. What I notice now, I'm learning more and more and more about all the huge numbers of things that can go wrong
Yeah.
with a pregnancy. And
Yeah.
I was not aware before, but we're aware now.
Modern medicine's a great thing.
Yeah, it's happening every day. So I think that's hot. And I have a client who made a horror short about a woman who was not happy about having her child, so feels if it's and it became part of an anthology. And then there's also the Babadook.
Yeah. Just that one, just that small film.
Yes. The Babadook, maybe the most scary film I've ever seen.
You so terrified you, right?
Yeah, it was
Terrifying film. Yeah,
I have another question if you have time.
please.
Kind of started to touch on it a little bit earlier in what you were saying, and I was wondering what you would advise people who are in a difficult situation with a crew member that they have to let go, but still maintain a good relationship, because you never know what the future holds.
well,
We struggle with this as well. I'm not gonna lie to you. We have had this situation like happen once or twice.
I think the issue with us is our industry is so small. We're definitely going to see them again in the near future. Yeah, like when we work on commercials and stuff. Honestly, in my experience, most times the feeling is pretty mutual, and just have a realistic heart to heart and see if they want to be here still. Most times they don't, and they just begging for an exit. So if you have a honest one-on-one, just sometimes it just doesn't work out. It's like a relationship. Like sometimes this person may be great to work with in commercials, and then when you come on a feature, they just don't have the stamina or the interest in it.
we can feel chemistry.
Just the chemistry in that long time. But like I said, to repeat, in my experience, most times they want out just as much as you, and it just takes somebody to be brave enough to be like, how do you feel?
And then I guess apart from that, honestly, you can't control how somebody's gonna react in a
Yeah.
situation. It may not be great, but I guess you just try to handle it as best as you can. And as honestly as you can too, without being like harsh. You could be harsh if you like, but just to kind of like tell them you don't necessarily think this is working or that the chemistry is right for you guys, and you hope that there's no hard feelings, but like I said, you can't really control their reaction. But what I would say is, especially if it's your film, you are gonna have to carry this film for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And a big mistake is, but like I said, I'm not even sure I could do it yet. I don't know if I have the like thing to like you're fired, I'm so sorry, leave. Because you have this project for the rest of your time. They get to leave after, and they don't have to stay with it. And if you're not happy, because you could have made a mistake, but at least you made that mistake and that was your choice. So you could, there's some kind of happiness there. But if you knew something wasn't right and you're getting a lot of like conflict with a person because of that, and then you end up kind of caving to that, and then it turns out bad, they get to leave and it's fine. They don't have to really get involved. So you just might have to like face that kind of confrontation and just handle it as good as possible, be as respectful as possible. And hopefully if they don't receive it well, hopefully in time they could see that maybe it was a better decision.
Yeah, for sure.
Is at least the hope. Otherwise you just have to kind of get used to some people not liking you. That has to just be a little like something you're okay with too.
Thank you.
And you have to make sure that you have the appropriate paperwork. So when they turn around and sue you, they don't have a leg to stand on.
Yeah.
I did let go of somebody once before, and it actually worked out quite easy because, like you said, Sophie, they actually wanted out of it too. But this one is, I don't know, it seems a little more personal, and I think the decision has already been mutually made, but it's still, there's kind of a sore spot there, you know.
The other thing that I think is so important is if you don't have much money, you cannot afford to have the wrong person on your set. You cannot afford to have the wrong person in your crew. You know, maybe if you had millions and millions of dollars, maybe it wouldn't matter. But if you have very little money, you can't afford it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, we experienced something similar.
Yeah, because if anything, they might waste you time.
Yeah, time is invaluable.
Expensive.
Yeah. Great question, Maeve. Well, again, thank you so much for coming. This was really, really lovely. I'm so glad to get to know you. I'll see you next time I'm in Trinidad. My father is having his 90th birthday this week, but I can't go because my passport's in England, so I won't be there. I'll make sure to come see you next time I'm there.
Yeah, for sure.
Come south.
Come south.
And south. All right. So thank you so much. And thank you, Emily, for putting this together and for taking care of us today on Zoom. And bye, everybody. Happy filmmaking. Bye-bye.